Welcome to SDH's coverage of the NPSL Southeast Conference. We'll go through the week that was pretty quickly, give you the match of the week, and hear from some of the principals as we get you ready for match week number 4, going over the standings as we get you ready for the games all on Saturday night this week, all at 7 o'clock kicks here in the Eastern Time Zone. So as always, what we do, we go backward before we go forward, and we drop you into the week that was. Back on Saturday, May the 20th, all 6 teams in action. Starting off at Hardin Valley Academy, the first ever home match for 865 Alliance. We'll catch up with head coach Michael Meyer in our Sound of the Week coming up in just a little bit. The tape's going to get out. Goalless draw with Apotheos, one of the highest, highest powered teams so far in the NPSL this season. Goalless draw for Apotheos and 865 Alliance. So a .1 in Hardin Valley last week for 865. Match of the week. It's at Ted Mackerel Soccer Complex. We'll catch up with Dale Parker later on in the show, but it's Appalachain FC and Georgia Storm. Here's your highlights, courtesy of our friends at Appalachian FC, their own selves, 11 Sports, and the NPSL.
Van Poskirk coming over to take the set piece. Storm will crowd forward here. Headed by James there. Madden's had to punch it clear just to be on the safe side there. There'll be a corner now for the away side. Punched away by Madden. Brought down by Guzman. And a chance for James. And the Storm have tucked away the breakthrough goal. Landau behind everyone. But it's going to find a way of Williams. And then Palacios has missed it. Luma. And it's in. It's in from Hamza. An equaliser at the death. And now Dinny's trying to get involved here with the Appalachian players. The goal will stand. The fight back is on, and there's still time left in this one. Eberle flicks it on. Render's there! He scored the winner, surely! Appalachian FC have stormed back and punished the Georgia Storm here. Absolute scenes at Ted Mackerel Soccer Complex. It's 2-1 in favour of the home side. The comeback is complete. It's cleared away, and Luma's on the other side of Palacios here. Palacios trying to get back. Luma's going to beat him. Will he find the net? Yes, he will. Game, set, and match. Appalachian FC are 3-1 up here, and they have their first 3 points of the 2023 campaign, and they've done it at the very last moment.
3-1 win for Appalachian FC in their match against Georgia Storm. So a big win there for App FC. Goals on the night go to Nabil Hamza. They are also on the board, Jeremiah Luoma, and it was Alexander Render with the 3 goals on the night. And the 1 goal for the Georgia Storm was back in the 84th minute. So when it was 1-0, it was a 1-0 lead for Storm, and then App FC comes up with 3 in short order. Hamza, Luoma, and Render coming back from 1-0 down in the final 6+ minutes to get the win by the final of 3-1. Also on the board last week in the Southeast, it was the Revs over the Charlottetowne Hops in McDonough by the final of 2-1. And we'll catch up with head coach Jack Marchant and Eli Pilcher of Charlottetown Hops coming up in just a little bit. So now your standings when it comes to the Southeast, before we get you into all of the interviews for this week when it comes to the Southeast. And a lot of teams, we figured going in that the Southeast Conference would be one of the tightest conferences around, and we're not too far off. Apotheos up top after the first 3 matches with 7 points. They've scored 7. They've only given up 2. Revs at 2-1, they have 6 points. App FC, 865 Alliance, both with 4. Charlottetowne Hops with a win and 2 losses there at 3 points. Georgia Storm with a loss, two losses and a draw. They're at 1 point this season. They've given up 6 goals in their first 3 matches. So let's get you into the sound for the week that was. We mentioned App FC and their big win as our match of the week. Here's head coach for App FC, Dale Parker, what he thought about what happened last week and what he thinks about what's going to happen this week. So you've hit each column so far in the first 3 weeks. What have you learned about yourself?
The performances have been very, very good, which has certainly helped us, have that belief, and that certainly came to the fore this past weekend. But I learned a lot about the group. I think we've got a better squad than we've ever had. I think in the past we've had very, very good 11s, 12, 13 players. This year we've got a very, very good 23, 24 guys. So I think we're better equipped to go further this year. But at the same time, the strength of the league has also improved. So we've got to make sure we're taking care of business and we're not slipping up and giving away points, because ultimately you've got 10 games to figure yourselves out. And that can end really, really quickly. We're already on game 4, so we're almost halfway through. So I learned a lot. It's been a strange experience, but we're all excited for the remainder of the season.
When you look at everything, and you said you've got a good 23 or 24 guys, traditionally a good 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. How difficult is it for you to put a game day roster together with all this depth that you've got?
It's extremely difficult. We're leaving players out of the 18 that could potentially have started for us last year or the year before, and could certainly go and play in another program for sure. But it's difficult. I think it's a good problem to have. We're in year 3, and we've had some success in the past, so we've been able to attract a bigger number of high quality players. But it certainly does cause more of a problem. I think building relationships with the players and those guys understanding that this is not just your ordinary run-of-the-mill summer league club. I think that's been certainly helpful. The guys understanding that they're part of something bigger. It's helped manage some of the issues that we may have had. But it's certainly difficult. We always try and we narrow it down to 2 players in every position, and then we trim that just before the weekend. Obviously it's even more difficult when you travel, because you want to get it right, but at the same time you want to get guys on the bus and enjoying the team camaraderie. So it's been difficult, but certainly a good problem to have.
How difficult is this conference this year? Because you got a lot of folks trading haymakers, and there's a lot of folks once again within a very short amount of space with each other when it comes to all the points. How tough is it out there this year?
It's difficult conference. Apotheos obviously have changed the look of it. They've raised the bar tremendously, and everyone's having to adapt their game or look upwards and try and run them down. So that's one significant change. But Georgia Revolution, second year under Jack, they've drastically improved. Georgia Storm, their experience at this level, they know what it takes. They're massively improved from last year. And obviously the 2 new teams, they've come into this having done a lot of research and not just coming into it blind. I know the coach at FC 865 Alliance. He's very serious, very detailed. He's built a really good squad of players. A lot of those guys I know, and Charlottetown as well, with some guys that I know. So it's a little bit different to when we first started, and there's a lot of unknowns and how do we navigate this league, and playing in Louisville and playing in North Alabama, all these different places. I think being closer together as a conference and knowing more about each other, and the new teams knowing more about the league before they got in, has certainly raised the level. So there are no easy games. There are a few games last year where you could potentially take your foot off the gas a little bit. That's not going to be the case this year, which certainly makes it more exciting for the people who like watching this conference, and obviously for the teams in it.
You mentioned the team that you're playing this week. It's a roadie to North Cobb to take on Apotheos, and how they've kind of flipped their own script. What has Study Hall been like getting ready for a team that really is making it tough for everybody else right now?
Yeah, we know what to expect. I think that might be the only positive of us going there to play on this weekend. This week we know what's coming. how we deal with it is going to be, sort of a bigger issue. We want to, and this, we spoke for the last 2 years. We want to imprint ourselves on every game we play. And that will be the same this weekend. We just got to make sure we do it even better. It's good that we have these teams in our conference now, because if your ambition is to go on and try and make a dent in the national tournament, you're going to have to play teams at this level. And the more opportunities we get to play against a team like Apotheos, the better we're going to get. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to steamroll the conference and win it and advance. What it does mean, though, it makes you better prepared if you do. So we're looking forward to it. We're optimistic as always, but also a lot more aware of what they can do now, and a lot more respectful of the players that can cause damage. And obviously, we're going to have a solid game plan to make sure we keep those players at bay. But at the same time, we don't want to take away from our attacking players and our exciting players. So it should be a good match. I said this last week that you might want to keep an eye on one game because there's going to be goals. I think this game, just organically, there's going to be a lot of eyes on because Apotheos are playing in it, and we've got to make sure we rise to the occasion.
Next up, Charlottetown Hops, and we catch up with one of their stars early on in the season and what it's like for Eli Pilcher to come home and play for Charlottetown Hops. Here is the interview that we did. We caught up with Eli Pilcher in our Athlete Spotlight this week. Okay, Eli, a little background. You're from Charlotte. Grew up playing for the Charlotte Soccer Academy. What's it like to play with other CSA alumni like Carter Nunnery, went to Furman, Novian Williams went to Campbell. So you've got Paladins and Camels, and now you're all Hops. What's that like?
It's honestly super fun. It's a really good time. I never was on the same team as some of those players. I was with Carter. I wasn't with Novian because he was an 04, and it's really fun. Like I love seeing all the Charlotte boys. Especially because some of them came in the later years, so I didn't get like all that time with them, and I knew of them. We were like half friends, and I feel like this has really like been a great opportunity to become like really good friends with a lot of them and like build strong connections. And I mean, that's like one of my favorite parts of being on this team, honestly, is like catching up with those old faces that I used to run into. So yeah.
When you're now at Rhodes,
Mm-hmm.
how would you compare life in the NPSL, where you're going up against other college players, older dudes, some dudes who are just coming back in to play in the summer? They might be done with their playing days. They'll come back in and play in the summer with normal gigs and normal jobs. What's it like going up against all these different age groups now that you're a part of Hops with the NP?
No, yeah, it's really interesting, actually. I think of it from a playing standpoint, almost like professional versus college, because with the Hops, like with the NPSL, there's a lot of players with a lot of different situations, right? Like we have Vuk Martinovic, for example, on our team, who he's played pro for many years. He's 34 right now, great player. And he's playing this, he's about to transition into being a coach. So that's kind of his, scenario. A lot of the young guys like me, Novi, and Carter, this is like a summer opportunity, a chance to improve, get better, stay fit, stuff like that. And we come at it from a very college perspective, being like, we want to play our hardest, we want to develop individually, and we want to kind of build parts of our game working in this team environment that'll transition back into college. And then you have other players like our captain, for example, Joe Pickering, who I don't know how many years, he's just out of college, not too many years, and he's still chasing, he's got a full-time job, but he still, has that love for soccer in his heart, and he's working every day. So it's a really interesting environment. I like it. It reminds me of pros because I feel like, in college, you live with the guys, you're with them all the time. And then here it's like you don't live with them, and they have other stuff going on, whether, job, family, whatever it is. But it kind of all meshes together, and we get along great. So it's a really fun time.
You got a summer job since you're not in school right now. Is there such a thing as a typical day when it comes to being in season and having the summer job, trying to stay fit, trying to give 100% both on the field and off the field? Is there such a thing as a typical day for you?
I would say yes. Yeah, there is a typical day. It's just really busy. Yeah. So currently it's we're training in the mornings most of the time. So it'll be 7 a.m. practice. So, get up, get ready, get out there early. Straight from practice, shower in the locker rooms, straight into the job. And then I'm in an internship down in Rock Hill. So I'm a 9 to 5 person. And then after 5, when I get home, I'll eat whatever, recover, rest a little bit, and then I'll try and get anything extra that I want to get in, whether that be, gym, whether that be recovery, whether that be extra fitness for the beginning of the summer,
Interview.
anything like that. That's a weekly day.
Yeah, and interviews when they're knocking on your door about answering questions like this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
When you were obviously looking for a home in the NP to stay in shape in the summer, what drew you to Hops in the first place, and how do you think it's developing as a club?
To be honest, I was really impressed. The connections are what drew me in originally, but I am very impressed with how well it's run in my opinion. Especially comparing it. This is my first year in the MP, and comparing it to the other clubs we've been to. I mean, one of our founders, Matt Spear, he's killing it. Like, I think he's firing on all cylinders. Like, I really do. I genuinely believe that. Like, he's there for the players, and I mean, there's never been any time really where I felt like, this is kind of unorganized. Like, we're just starting. I've never felt like that truly. And the coaches are great too. Yeah.
And at the same time, you're playing at an old stomp over at Ortho Carolina. What's it like to be back there and running through the same pieces of grass that you've been running in the past?
Yeah, the blades of grass. Yeah. No, it's good. It's a great stadium, honestly. It's really top class. They've renovated a little bit, so now there's like locker rooms, and they pair with a sports performance company. Architect Sports is there. The stands are great. I mean, I love being at Ortho. The field is pretty large though for an outside back like me. It is a lot of running.
They're going, hang on just a second. Can we
No.
kind of trim this out a little bit?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
The schedule makers must have had a sense of humor coming into this season, because you're playing a back-to-backer. It's a two-legged regular season event here. Go back to last week and tell me about the road trip to Revs and playing in McDonough and what you've learned from that in short order. And now you've got the second leg coming up this weekend.
No, I feel like I'm in the NBA. Like, I feel it's so funny. I've never done that my entire career. And I feel like I'm in the NBA right now playing a back-to-back in soccer. It's funny. It's awesome. But yeah, we made the trip down to the Revs last weekend. Unfortunately, we lost. We didn't get the performance or the result we wanted. Um, there was just some things of our game that we knew we weren't doing well, and we knew it during the game. And we got some momentum, especially at the beginning of the second half, but we gave away a goal, and we weren't able to pull it back. But we're really excited. This week, we know as soon as we finished the game last week, we knew we were playing the Revs again on a back-to-back, and this time at home. So immediately this week we've been focusing on, okay, we've seen them play, we've deconstructed their game plan a little bit. What are we going to do better this time, basically? So we've been working on it, and we're a lot of the boys are really excited to play these guys again.
Subtle plug, it's going to be on the weekend. It's wild. Like I said, schedule maker must have had an immense sense of humor when it came to making things out, because the two of the first 3 weeks, the Revs are playing the same opponent, not quite back to back, but now you've got a back to backer here,
Mm-hmm.
and it is 7:00 Saturday night at Ortho Carolina. Hops hosting the Georgia Revs, where it was the reverse last time out. Eli, thanks for hanging out with us. Make sure that the back is always secure there for Hops. Thanks for hanging out with us here for a part of the show here on the NPSL Southeast Conference Review, the review preview extravaganza that we always have. Looking forward to catching up on the match this week. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Will do. Thank you for having me.
Once again, we mentioned Charlottetown losing 2-1 to the Revs in McDonough. And there's an interesting subplot to that. We'll get to that coming up in the matches in the week that will be. Revs 2-1 winners over Charlottetown. Here's our interview with head coach Jack Marchant as he gets ready for the return trip. All right, take me through what happened last week, and I know it's a bit of a precursor to what's going on this week, but let's talk about the past first. What was it like to get the 2-1 win in McDonough?
Very, very enjoyable. Charlotte are a good team. Really impressed with them. We've talked about it endlessly in the first 3 weeks. The difference early on in the season is usually a mistake or a bit of quality, which I know we can talk about in football all the time. But we have such a short amount of time with these guys that although when we'd love to play like Man City, we don't have the time to be able to put that sort of intricacies together. So, you got to make sure that you master the basics early on. And again, we scored a really, really good first goal in the first half, a well-worked set piece. And we talked about it at halftime. We keep a clean sheet and we'll win the game. And then we start the second half really well. We're in cruise control and a mistake out of nowhere and it's 1-1. And all of a sudden you're thinking, how do we win this game? And then Justin Guest, again, 3 goals in 3 games, pops up with a moment of magic. I'm screaming at him to go down the line. He cuts inside and sticks it in the top corner. And what do I know? But I look back at it, as well as the Storm game, we look back at last year. We won 4, drew 4, and tied 2. I think I mentioned last week. 3 of the games that we tied, we were winning. And if you look back at last year, we beat the bottom 2 teams home and away, but we didn't beat anybody in the top 4. So if you fast forward to this year, we've picked up 6 points from drawing positions, and teams are going to finish in the top 4. So, it's a huge step forward for us. I think it's what we talked about in week 1 about that experience and getting over the line and getting 3 points.
What's it like seeing a guy like Justin ride a hot streak like this?
Makes my life easier. I can tell you that for free. But, Guesty's fantastic. I knew him, obviously, when I was working on the women's side at Georgia State. I've seen him play his whole college career there. And then playing for us last year and coming in, you can see the kid's full of confidence. And again, as much as I'd like to tell him what to do, he's kind of a free bird in that role. And I let the kid roll with it. He's fantastic. He's electric. He's exciting. I think at times you'll pull your hair out, but then he can pull something like that right out the top drawer. So, it's just a pleasure to work with a player like himself.
And the intrigue, I guess the Palace intrigue involving the schedule, is that this time around you drew the same team out of the hat, and now you get to go to Ortho Carolina. What's it like playing somebody back to back? I know we talked about what it's like 2 and 3 weeks, but what's it like back to back, and you're the one that's got to travel for leg 2?
It's tough, and I think the challenge that I've set to the guys this week is what makes it tougher is we beat them. So there's a target on our back. They're going to want retribution, and winning the first game, it makes the second game a little bit tougher. But, and that's a pure mentality thing. From a tactical standpoint, again, I don't think either of us will change too much. And it's just going to be kind of who rises to that challenge on the day. And it's something that we've talked about all week. But, everyone faces different challenges in the summer, and I like it because it's unique. It brings a different side of my game as a coach out, but also it puts a lot of emphasis on the players. You got to be able to perform regardless of who you play, because in a 10-game season, every game feels like a 6-pointer because a lot of things can make and break in a week. Again, I rewind to 2 weeks ago, we were staring down the barrel after losing the first game of the season. And now all of a sudden we're sat in second 2 weeks later, and, it's all back in our hands. So it changes so quickly, and you just got to take it week by week. Again, for me, the opponents don't particularly matter. If we perform well on the day, we'll be successful.
And as we mentioned, 865 Alliance and Apotheos at Hardin Valley, goalless draw. So that means we catch up with the head coach once again of 865 Alliance, Michael Meyer, to get his view of the goalless draw and the week that will be. A lot of folks have had problems this season in dealing with Apotheos, and you found a way to hold them to a goalless draw. I guess first and foremost, what was the atmosphere like to have a match at Hardin Valley?
It was actually the FC Alliance Club and their youth program all came out to support us. At the end of the game, the little kids were cheering 865, so it was a really good vibe and atmosphere, and our players fed off of it, so it was really good.
Without giving away any state secrets, I guess what were the keys to the match to keep one of the more high-powered offenses in the NPSL in check for a full 90 minutes?
Sure. The biggest thing is the discipline and the patience that our back line had. And then when we retained the ball, kept the ball. In the first half, I want to give them credit. I think they had a little bit better run of the play in the second half. I think we did a really good job. Now, granted, they went down a guy, but I thought we managed that well and created the 2v1s when it was available to us. And then secondly, we just needed to execute. We had some opportunities and we just didn't put them away. So that's something we got to do against Georgia Storm this weekend.
I was going to say we'll get into the Storm preview coming up in just a little bit, but as you've gotten to these first handful of matches, I know that there's some adjustments going from match week 1 to match week 2 because not a lot of folks may have all their personnel, those kinds of things. But as we've gotten to this particular point of the season, what have you learned about yourselves and what have you learned about the team so far?
That we're continuing to get better and better and better. They're just, they're buying into the system. We have to learn from every experience. Still need to, we're creating chances now, executing that final penetrating ball. Just refining that in the offensive third. I think the back line continues to have good discipline, and the midfield is looking to switch the point of attack quickly, and then it's now getting numbers in the box and then execute.
It's a road trip this time. You mentioned Georgia Storm, so we'll go ahead and go down that. We'll go ahead and go down that road. What I like to do in these situations in game previews, it's like if we're sitting up in the television booth and you're my color guy, you're my color guy for your match. And traditionally how, you'll watch a match on television, you'll get the title card, sit there with the two teams, and then go into certain aspects of it, and I'll talk for a little bit. And then you'll see that picture of Michael Meyer walking, either doing drills or on the touchline or whatever, getting ready for the match. Then you'll get that box that'll pop up, the little tombstone. It'll pop up in the low corner, keys to the match. So from your perspective, looking at Michael Meyer wandering around on the touchline, getting ready for this match at the University of West Georgia, what are your keys in this match for 865 to succeed?
Ball retention, understanding that Georgia Storm's really good. They like to press, and making sure we handle the ball well under pressure. And then when we do have the ball, keeping it in the midfield. And like I said before, when we're in the offensive third, getting numbers and then executing that penetrating ball and then finishing off those opportunities. If we do that, I think we'll be all right. They're very good. They were a little bit unlucky last week against App FC. I think the second half, they were probably better, and then they were a little unlucky that last 2 minutes. Their goalie and a player collided, which ultimately it was like a scrum, and then a goal happened. And then off of a deflection, and that last the service, it came off of 2 crosses, and then the second cross came in, it deflected, and a goal happened. In many ways, if you looked at that, it could have switched. They could have won that game. So that was a really tight game. So they're going to be highly motivated against us, and we have to be ready for that.
You mentioned travel, and I know that the formation geographically of this division isn't as wide as it used to be, but travel in and of itself creates questions for coaches and all the logistics that are attached. How difficult is it to pare down to a traveling squad in this season, knowing that every match is doubly important considering it's a sprint? And then logistically, what's it like to try to get things squared away to travel here in the NPSL Southeast?
I think we've done a really good job in preparing. We're obviously taking a charter there, so making sure the kids have ample time to just acclimate themselves to the new atmosphere. We're up for the challenge each time. I'm fine with our schedule. I think it's good. I mean, each opponent is really good, and you have to adjust each one. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and then as long as you do your prep work right, and the kids are seeing those opportunities, we try to make sure the kids are watching as much film as possible so they get enough information. Sometimes that is something when I played, we didn't have as much film access to us. Nowadays, you got plenty of it. So I'm always sending that to the kids.
So your 3 matches, once again, we mentioned all 7 o'clock on Saturday night at North Cobb Christian. It is App FC visiting Apotheos at Ortho Carolina Sportsplex. It is the Revs visiting Charlottetown Hops. And at the University of West Georgia, it is 865 Alliance and the Georgia Storm. We will keep you posted on all of the action in the NPSL Southeast all season long. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you are close to North Cobb, to Ortho Carolina, or to the University of West Georgia, drop by, catch some of the stars that are here in one of the toughest conferences in the NPSL all season long. If you cannot be at any one of those three venues, follow along through your local providers and all the social media, and you can catch up with all of the action that happened last week, same time next week here on SDH. That's your review and your preview of what's going on in the NPSL Southeast Conference. Play it safe, everybody. Enjoy the matches in the NPSL.